Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the All Around Growth Podcast, a show that provides insight and tools to build the life and homestead of your dreams. My name is Rob Kaiser, and I am your host. Today is, it's a chilly morning at that, based on the sound of my truck. It's Monday, December 20th, and this is episode number 250 of the show. Not quite sure what the title of today's show is, but what we are going to do is close it out for the week. This is the last show of the week, the last show before Christmas. And I'm going to turn up the defroster for a minute here since it is such a chilly morning. And I want to share a couple things with you. First of all, before we even get started, leave room in life for things that make your heart sing. And that's a little refrigerator magnet, okay, that I got in a Christmas card from Dan Miller, Dan and his wife Joanne. And this is a cool little magnet. I'm going to take it to work. And at the very least, use it as a bookmark for now, because I may leave it at home on the fridge. But I have metal barn metal that coats the inside of my office there. And I want to talk about this magnet. And I'd also like to use the rudder of the day as fodder for discussion for this morning's episode. So let's talk about these two things. And this is going to be another 48 days episode. So last week we read Get Off the Nail Today. And today and this week, since this will be the only episode this week, who knows, there may be a surprise episode snuck in there, but I'm thinking that this is going to be the first and last official episode of the week, and then we'll regroup after the holidays. But today we're going to talk about the security of imprisonment. Oh man, so it looks like we're going to have some conflicting topics today. The comfort of familiarity may be keeping you from new and brighter opportunities. Charles Dickens wrote about a man who had been in prison for many years. Obviously, this man longed for freedom from his dungeon of despair and hopelessness. Finally, the day of his liberation arrived. He was led from his gloomy cell into the bright and beautiful and free world. He momentarily gazed into the sunlight, then turned and walked back into his cell. He had become so comfortable with confinement that the thought of freedom was overwhelming. For him, the chains and darkness were a predictable security. For many people, change is frightening. The sameness and predictability of what we have may be more comfortable than the uncertainty of change. Day after day, I hear stories from clients about the feeling of being trapped in their jobs and lives. And yet the comfort of at least knowing what is coming each day appears to be more attractive than the uncertainty of initiating change. Many people have the dream of having their own business. I hear stories about people who purchased a business opportunity, got into a multi-level marketing program, or opened up their own antique shop. 6 months later, they're begging to get their old job back. The challenges of being more independent, hoping to make more decisions about inventory, managing employees, and dealing with new tax reporting forms have caused them to long for the old days, back in Egypt. Remember those people? When the children of Israel left Egypt, they were headed for the promised land. But a few days of passing through the desert, a necessary passage to the promised land, left them wanting to go back to the familiar misery of slavery under the Pharaoh. Yet going through the desert is an integral part of getting to any promised land. Most business people go through 3 or 4 ideas and failures before they reach extraordinary success. The first step in creating positive change is to identify what you want. What would the ideal job be? What kind of people would you be working with? What skills would you be using? How would it make a difference in the world? Fortunately, you are not trapped in your job or life. You can choose to walk into new freedom, or you can choose to stay in your own private prison. Like the man in Dickens's story, it's tempting to become secure, even in negative situations. Yet the freedom comes only to those who are willing to surrender the security of imprisonment. Quote, "You can't sail to new lands unless you're willing to lose sight of the shore." Close quote. And as always, before we ask ourselves the question that will give us some direction for the day, we'll take a look at a passage from the Bible, and today we'll read from the book of Exodus, chapter 16, verses 3 to 4. "Oh, that we were back in Egypt," they moaned, "and that the Lord had killed us there. For there we had plenty to eat. But now you have brought us into this wilderness to kill us with starvation." Then the Lord said to Moses, "Look, I'm going to rain down food from heaven. Everyone can go out each day and gather as much food as he needs." The direction for today, the question that we're going to ask ourselves, and the question that I would encourage you to think about as well, my friends, is this: do you have a secure prison that is protecting you, but perhaps keeping you from a new freedom? And that is the question. Let's repeat that before we hit the road. Do you have a secure prison that is protecting you, but perhaps, oh my gosh, let's try that again, guys. The question that provides direction for today is, do you have a secure prison that is protecting you, but perhaps keeping you from a new freedom? Well, I do. Huh? Of course I do. I can only share and talk about my own experiences, guys. And I do so openly and freely in the hopes that it can be of benefit to you. Because like you, I've gone through and continue to go through a process of growth and development, one which I call all-around growth, because it includes growth in all facets of life. And many of the ways in which I've done that have been through podcasts. So in an effort to give back what was effectively so freely given to me, here I am creating a podcast. And that question's a tough one. Do you have a secure prison that is protecting you, but perhaps keeping you from a new freedom? Of course I do. It's my job, right? And my career goal, I don't know to what extent I want to get into the depths of my goals, because this is a public podcast, right? But let's be clear about it. Because of the way that the gossip train works and people's inability to effectively communicate, all right? No one really approached me directly that I work with at least, and said, hey, what's up? I heard you were looking for a job. People that I don't work with, that's exactly what they did. And then we had a simple conversation about it, and that was that. But no one, for whatever reason, no one felt as though they could approach me. And that's frankly, one of the reasons why I am entertaining the idea of looking for another job. Because when I was approached about it, it was about a job that I thought I had no business exploring in the first place. But based on my skill set and that I've shared and have shared publicly on LinkedIn for years, I do. So it got me thinking, and it got me putting it out there. And eventually the difficult conversation was had between myself and management at the day job. And it remains that remains my secure prison that is protecting me. And I understand how off-putting that can sound. And on the one hand, I really hope that certain people that I work with and the owner who I work for doesn't really hear this. But I'm also happy to have the conversation about that because it's a fact. It's true. If we're all working for someone else, we're all dependent on them for our income. And that's part of the goal and the idea for me, is to be financially independent, is learn how to develop ways to generate income outside of my employment. And now as we get to the tracks here, the on the flip side of that is what this magnet reads. Okay. This magnet reads, leave room in things for your life that make your heart sing. Okay. Now, one of the pros about my day job, and this is something I've talked about recently with the owner. He's a good man. He's been very flexible with me and all of my health concerns over the past year. And before I even started today's show, I was thinking how nice it would be to do like a winter wrap-up episode as we go into the holidays, because in the past, this was about the time that I was doing exactly that, and then shutting it down between Christmas and New Year's. Taking all this time off. Well, this isn't the past anymore. Things have changed. So I'll be working this year. I have a lot going on. I'm taking tomorrow off, which is the solstice. I'll be fasting all day, resting, reading, writing, reflecting. All right. And then Wednesday, if I wasn't going into Cleveland to follow up with the functional medicine doctor that I've been working with over the past few months, I would be working. But since I've got to make a haul into Cleveland, I decided to take the day off and take advantage of the fact that I will be driving around and wrap up some last minute Christmas shopping with picking up some gifts at thrift stores. So that may be where the extra episode comes in. But what I'm talking about here is the flexibility with my day job. And for a long time, as many of you know who listen to this show, for a long time, I've been focused on the negatives of my workplace. And it's easy to do when the negatives are in your face and you're stressed because certain people have left. I mean, I lost my partner this year. It's been a challenging year. And it's been easy to focus on the negatives. On the positive side, I've had the flexibility and the freedom to make these appointments and go to these appointments and do whatever I want, do whatever I need to. And part of the reason why I'm also working over the holidays is I don't have any more vacation time. I used it all up in the spring and summer recovering from seizures, because this has been I've had more seizures this year than I've had in the past 7 years. It's been wild. So here's to getting healthy. And when I got this card, or when I got this little magnet in the mail, inside the Christmas card that read, "Leave room in your life for things that make your heart sing," I realized that the comfort of familiarity that we read about can do exactly that. And it's easy now for me to think about the pros, because we're heading into winter, we're heading into the slow time. We are, it's easy to forget about a lot of the stressors and the things that contributed to having more seizures in my life than I've ever had, or more seizures this year than I've had in the past 7. Now, I'm not blaming anyone for that, right? I'm just simply acknowledging that stress is a contributing factor to that, and that while I understand choices that lead me away from the comfort of familiarity would provide stress as well, it's a different kind of self-created stress. But more on that later. I read this and thought, boy, this is how I should look at my workplace. This is perhaps something that's going to contribute to the change of heart, the change of mindset that I ought to consider embracing. Because yes, there are people and things that upset me, and that's fine, and I can let that ruin my day, my week, my month, my year, my life, and I can hold grudges and be angry, or I can simply forgive and forget, or do my best to do so and understand that is likely, that those instances likely happen because that's the way people are. I can't change people, but I can change myself, and I can change my circumstances. And if I can't change them, then I can create them, because that is what I'm capable of, and that's what you're capable of too. So remember, the comfort of familiarity may be keeping you from new and brighter opportunities, and it's scary, because the reality is, you can't sail to new lands unless you're willing to lose sight of the shore. And oftentimes those new opportunities that touch on the limitless potential that lies within each and every one of us. Sometimes those opportunities are only visible if we're willing to lose sight of the shore where we once stood. So think about that today, guys. Think about that secure prison that is protecting you, but perhaps keeping you from a new freedom. Okay? And in closing, all this sounds easy to think about, right? Yeah, it's easy to talk about, easy for you to say. Well, these words that I speak, it's easier for me to speak them because the words that I speak now are a result of a decade of accumulation of information, knowledge, data, and resources and tools from people like, but not limited to, Dan Miller. And this book, for example. But this has been such a powerful resource for me, Dan Miller, and not just simply him. I don't worship him like some idol, but he's created a fantastic community that works collectively to provide tools and resources to help each other grow and create the life and work of your dreams, right? So one of the best ways I've learned how to get beyond that plateau of the imprisonment, the security, and actually discovering these new freedoms. One, financial. You gotta get out of debt. You can't do anything. You can't think clearly if you've got the burden of debt hanging over your shoulder, hanging over your head. It is a lifestyle. Financial Peace University is the way for me. It was the way for me. It is the way for me because it's still a lifestyle. I'm hosting a course in January. No one signed up. Don't care. I'm going to take that time, work through it again myself. It's a lifestyle. I allowed myself to go through the 48 Days Eagles community, or to participate in it at a cost of 48 days a month after I got out of debt, because for years I had eliminated those extraneous expenses. And after doing so and making those sacrifices for a couple of years, it only seemed appropriate to spend some money and time, resources on myself, my own personal growth and development. That's exactly what I did this past year. 48 days. It's the best thing I've ever done. And as we go through the 2022 goal setting workbook, we read that financial is the first of the 7 categories in life that we've got to work through. So guys, got to get our finances straight before we can really move and make progress on anything else. And you can do it. You can definitely do it. I mean, I was able to pay off. Oh, it doesn't even matter. I'm here at work. I'm trying to think of a way without getting into specifics and numbers, but I was able to, but who cares? I was able to pay off well over $20,000 in consumer debt as a single man in just 3 years, making the median income where I live. So if you're married, double that. $46,000, $7,000. Got a family, tack on a little more. It may take you years. It took me years. Went through a bankruptcy too. It took me decades to realize that I needed to repattern my life, and the process of repatterning took years. I started with finance, and now I've moved on to other facets of my life. And here we are. 250 episodes into the documentation process of doing so. Guys, I hope that you like what you hear. I'm I'm going to start promoting this show soon. I'm going to build a website for it and make this a better deliverable product. Look forward to doing so. It's going to be a slow process because I've got a lot of other irons in the fire. And I'm excited to share all of that with you and more as time goes on. So depending on what happens Wednesday, we may or may not have an episode, special release, holiday episode dropped. But if not, I wish you and your families the best during these holidays. I wish you a very Merry Christmas, and I'll catch up with you after Christmas on Monday, December 27th, 1 week from today, as we will likely dive back into the Rudder of the Day or one of the other devotionals. Thank you again. I sincerely appreciate your time. I sincerely appreciate your support. I sincerely appreciate you being a part of the community. And you can do so at t.me/allaroundgrowth. This is Rob Kaiser, and thank you.